Tucked away in the North Georgia mountains of the United States, there is an incredible racing facility that was named one of the top 10 tracks in North America by Road and Track magazine. Atlanta Motorsports Park is an absolute jewel of American motorsports. AMP's main road course is a 2-mile-long course that was designed by Formula One track architect Herman Tilke. The track consists of 16 turns and 98 feet of elevation changes throughout the course. Two famous corners have also been incorporated into the track, Spa's Eau Rouge and the famous Carousel corner from Germany's Nürburgring. The facility also features the most unique karting circuit in the country, also designed by Tilke, and the 0.8 of a mile track features 17 turns and an incredible 43 feet of elevation change, which is pretty extreme when you're riding just 2 inches off the ground. The track has quite a bit of character built into it as well, with a near 4-story drop into a 180-degree hairpin and one of the longest straightaways of any kart track in the country. But like every other racetrack in the U.S. right now, and around the world for that matter, Atlanta Motorsports Park is currently silent, shut down by the ongoing COVID-19 coronavirus. The track may be shut down, but its members still need to whet their appetite for racing. And this fueled the launch of what we're going to see here today, the AMP eSeries, sponsored by DiscoveryParts and OMP. We're kicking off a 5-race series on Apex Racing TV, and the opening round tonight will take place on the road course at the Daytona International Speedway. And the race car of choice is the Porsche 918 Cayman GT4. Hello, race fans. I'm Rob Howden, and I'm pleased to be joined by Marco Barbanera, who will handle production, be in the booth as well. Marco, this should be the start of a very interesting series.
Absolutely, yes. Hello to you, Rob, and hello to everyone watching at home. Absolutely fantastic to be here, and what better place to start than Daytona International Speedway for this first round of the season. This car has been massively popular on iRacing since its release. Well, now it was 5-6 weeks ago, and I find it the perfect car to make a little bit of a step up from the slower cars, not as demanding as the faster cars, but it is one of those cars where you really need to push it to the limit if you want to get the maximum out of it. And here in Daytona, I think it's a track that everyone knows very well. We have, of course, former drivers from the Daytona 24-hour race here in this event today. But this looks like a fantastic field. The weather is absolutely beautiful, and let's see who gets the not so important pole position. I mean, it's always nice to get pole position, but there's going to be a lot of drafting here today.
Now, one of the big things about this racetrack, 3.54 miles in length, very fitting to be opening up this particular program for the AMP drivers, simply because of the fact that the track also opens up the IMSA series every year with the Rolex 24 events. So drivers getting things underway here in what will be a 5-round series every Wednesday. Interesting, so many of these drivers, of course, members at the Atlanta Motorsports Park. Some of them drive the big track, others take part in the karting events at that fantastic karting track I mentioned earlier. So all of them, Marco, like so many people right now, itching to get back behind the wheel, drive something. Sim rig sales going through the roof right now as people clamoring to be part of the iRacing platform and running in all these events. Qualifying, as you said, underway right now. Drafting is going to play a huge role here in qualifying. But the simple fact is that these guys that would like to be out in their karts or in their, of course, road cars, their track cars at AMP, getting a chance to get behind the wheel here at really one of the iconic racetracks in all of North American motorsport.
I can partially share their feeling. I have as a daily reminder of something to look forward to here on my desk. I have my 2020 freshly baked marshalling license that I had renewed a couple of days before the lockdown came into effect, and I was so looking forward to another season at the trackside. Of course, getting ready for the Formula E Prix, where I would have been a marshal this year. So yeah, I missed the track too. On a different side of things, but still, it's really sad that we could have been there and enjoying some fantastic cars. And I've always been a fan, but when I became a marshal, it really kicked into another gear. And you don't become a marshal usually if you don't love it, but because staying up close to the drivers, so you almost start to I don't want to say become friends with them because it's unprofessional and of course very difficult. But you start, living with them, especially when, like me, you work in the pit lane. So I know how much these guys are missing the racetrack proper. And this, I've been sim racing for almost 20 years now. So this is it's not as good as the real thing, but comes really close. It's perfect for times like this, I'd say.
It's interesting, Marco, because a lot of times, depending on what I'm announcing, whether I'm at a karting event or at one of the Road to Indy or IndyCar events, I'm normally up in a booth somewhere announcing. Now, when I do work for IndyCar Radio for the Indy Lights and IndyCar races, I'm down on pit lane, so I'd probably be standing beside you, one of our marshals, and I congratulate you and thank you for what you do as a marshal, because racing. It can do without engineers, it can do without fans, but we simply cannot do without marshals. And so I'm thrilled to hear that that's one of the things that you do. But in the same along the same lines, it's I'd love to be back at the racetrack. I'm thoroughly enjoying getting to kind of stretch my vocal cords and got to get more comfortable announcing these events here on iRacing with Apex Racing TV, because it's such a different discipline. I've really been enjoying myself doing the different races we've done. Of course, the Road to Indy has their eSeries that will be back on track on Saturday. But these drivers here, as part of the Atlanta Motorsports Park family, getting right at it as qualifying continuing. Dion Fiello with the fast lap so far, a 154.18 quick time around here. Not that far behind him, we have Brant Estes in the number 17. He runs P2. James Holden now in third. Ryan Flannery in fourth, and Fred Hazelton rounding out your fast five. Gap up top, not huge right now, just a little over a second here now. It's Hazelton trying to find some more pace. The draft, as we said, is going to play a big factor. Qualifying, as you said, though, Marco, not overly important, because if you have a good car and you get in the draft, you'll be able to close up on people. Interesting thing about this racetrack, though, is it not? That they, of course, they run the Daytona 500 here every year, a big race. They used to run on the July 4th weekend as well. This particular race, and with the IMSA drivers and the Rolex 24, they use a great deal of the big track here at Daytona when they come back out of turn number 6 and 7 out of the infield, all the way through essentially what is NASCAR turn 1 and 2, all the way down the back straightaway, except for the quick little bus stop, which is turn number 10 and 11, and all the way through 12, all the way through 13. So essentially running almost the entire facility through the tri-oval, then they tuck into turn number 1, just past the pit out of pit lane. I think such a fun track to drive, I think, and tough. It's extremely tough, I think, to put a good lap in here.
Especially that first corner, it's one of those really tricky. It goes without saying at the start. Qualifying is going to be important because you want to stay as far front as possible, because it gets such a massive funnel of cars all coming together. But even during the race, getting your braking point there is extremely tough, and also you have to keep the faith that the guy behind you because not everyone brakes at the same point there. So there have been instances of well, okay, I'm there, okay, I'm braking, and then the car behind says, oh, why is this guy braking so early? And there you have a collision, and there is a massive runoff area there, thankfully. So at the very least, people can take avoiding action. But at the start of the race, it's going to be very tough to get everyone through. We have a spectacular field of cars today. So far we have 21 drivers with a time, but more are running, still having to set a qualifying time, as Dion Fiallo is here at the bus stop chicane, as you can see, clipping those curves. Very easy to get an off track there that will invalidate your lap. And then, of course, as you were saying, back on the banking, NASCAR 3 and 4, as this, I absolutely love this car. It's fantastic. Cannot wait for the BMW M4 to come up next in this GT4 class. They are my two favorite GT4 cars. So I was very lucky. There are plenty of GT4 cars. I was actually lucky enough to be assigned to the BMW Italian team for the Italian GT, and one of their two cars in the 2019 round of the Italian Endurance Championship was they had the M4, so I had a very close look at that car, and it's absolutely beautiful. Cannot wait to have it fight with the Cayman very soon on iRacing.
Looking forward to that as well. I actually just downloaded this car today. It's not one that I already had yet, and got a chance to run some laps here around this road course at Daytona International. We do have an interesting name in the field right now, and he hasn't put a lap down here, I think, yet in qualifying. And I'm talking about Felipe Nasser, a driver who ran for Sauber in Formula One back in 2015, 2016. Set to make his debut this year in IndyCar with Carlin Racing. Had a chance to run at a couple of the test sessions and showed extremely well. We'd love to have Felipe Nasser in the IndyCar program this year. He works closely with the good folks at the Atlanta Motorsports Park and jumping in here to have some fun. We also have a late entry as well. One of his engineers, Felipe Moses, has jumped in as well. A late entry. We had another driver lined up to compete, but was not able to make it. So Felipe jumps in. The Brazilian currently sitting in the 11th position. He's about, I want to say, what time? A 154.1 still top for Dion Fiallo, and Moises a 155.9. So about 1.8 seconds back now. And 1.8 seconds sounds like a lot, but when we're talking about a 3.54 mile racetrack, Marco, 13 turns, you could lose pace in a lot of parts of this racetrack. And I think people kind of don't give enough, I think, power or let's say control to how good you come through turn 6 and 7. That's a tough part of this racetrack because you're coming through 6, you're on the binders, you're trying to roll back on the throttle. And to be honest, the faster you can get out of turn number 6 and 7, that's going to give you your top speed before you get to the bus stop. And again, the bus stop important as well to get back around to the front straightaway. But that 6-7 combination, I think, is so crucial if you're going to try to set up a pass over in turn number 10.
And as I absolutely agree, and as much as a little bit of draft is absolutely very welcomed on the oval part, traffic here in the infield section can usually ruin your lap because you can go for a move and pass them, but that will undoubtedly force you to take some weird lines in the horseshoes. And of course, then you have the kick where you need to be very, very brave to attempt a pass with any kind of car, including this one, especially during a qualifying session. Again, on paper, a very simple layout, but in reality, a track that really poses you with different challenges compared to where you are. Of course, when you jump on the oval, it's a bit different, but let's talk about that bus stop with that braking area. So tough to get it right, especially when you go there one lap in the draft, one lap you're not in the draft. So your braking marker can change wildly, and then that's without considering when they do, of course, the 24-hour race, going there in the day, in the night, different levels of grip, different levels of visibility of light on the racetrack. So yeah, deceptively easy this track, but I've been lucky enough to do 3 24 hours of Daytona in a racing, finishing 2 of them, and it has been tough, absolutely tough. It's my favorite 24-hour race of the year, worldwide, like in real life as well. I love this place. It's absolutely beautiful.
I had a chance to go to the Rolex 24 about 5 or 6 years ago with the good folks from Mazda, and I really enjoyed it. It was definitely an experience I've never had before. I've been to a lot of different races, hundreds of kart races, a lot of IndyCar, stock car races, you name it, sprint car races, but it was such a different experience, and I absolutely loved it. You mentioned you've raced in 3 24-hour iRaces and it's iRacing events. It's something I haven't done yet. I've had many guys in the IndyCar and road racing media who have said, "Listen, Rob, we got to get you into one of these races because you're going to absolutely love it." Something I haven't done yet and I want to do. I can't though echo your comments more about the bus stop. It's such a tough corner because the visuals coming into that corner, it's such a flat part of the racetrack. It's hard to pick up cues, right? That the turn in, the braking points. Yeah, you've got the braking markers on the fence coming down the back straightaway, but the visual cues you would use at a more maybe undulating road course, maybe a little bit easier, even a street course potentially, a little easier on the braking zone. So this should be it'll be an interesting part of the racetrack for sure. Qualifying has now come to an end. Marco and Dion Fiallo, who held the top spot for the majority of the session, a 154.17 top time. Dion Fiallo. Brant Estes in the 17 ends up in second. It's the 117 for Fiallo, so if you guys want to pick him up when we go racing, he's the 117. Braden Kelly ends up in third position. James Holden in fourth, and Ryan Flannery rounding out the Fast Five. Top 5 drivers separated by just over a second. And for the drivers that ran the majority of the session, we're looking at about 5 seconds from the front of the grid, Marco, to the drivers starting back in the 26th position.
Absolutely, as a couple of drivers left on the racetrack, but time is up, and in just a second we will bring you the starting grid from Daytona. As you can see, lovely day with very clear skies, and I'd say that yes, qualifying is officially over. Just waiting for that very technical and professional term of the session to switch over. We're just waiting on iRacing to press the the server automatically press the advanced button basically, so we can give you the starting grid. 45 minutes of racing here in and this car in the official series that races on iRacing, which is basically the official virtual version of the IMSA Pilot Challenge. They race for 30 minutes. Here we go 45, so a bit longer, meaning that the drivers would really need to manage those tires really well. But let's go with the grid, which is not
Yeah,
here.
and we had a pretty good run there in qualifying, as Marco had said. We'll get the grid up here for you momentarily. Dion Fiello, again, on the pole position alongside Brandt Estes. Waiting for the grid to pop up here. It was interesting. I saw the weather there. One weather told us 65 degrees. The other was 92 degrees. So we're not sure which way to go, but regardless, you got to take care of your tires here. There again is qualifying. Dion Fiello from Georgia, P1, alongside Brandt Estes to start the race. Braden Kelly in the number 8 will start third alongside James Holden. Ryan Flannery and Fred Hazelton in row number 3. Jameel Gummer and Orion Harper on row 4. Michael Green alongside Patrick Wilmot on row 5. Michael Lane on the inside, and Felipe Moises, as said, one of the engineers for Felipe Nasser. He'll start 12th. Nasser a little further down in 15th on the inside of row number 8. Michael Day and Thornton Amir on row number 7. Nasser alongside Ryan Nickel on row 8, and Sonny Chen and Chris Fenner, row number 9, 17th and 18th. Marco, what do you think about Felipe Nasser? Did he get maybe one? I think he got one lap in the books. I think the number 31 should be a guy that we watch trying to come through the field here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, he has massive experience, not only around here, but as a race driver in general. I remember following him in the junior formulas before he came into F1, and now is secondary part of his career, I'd say, in North America, of course, in IMSA competition, as well as you were saying, hopefully in IndyCar. Surely a driver that will know how to move through the traffic, but it's easier said than done, especially around Daytona.
About 45 minutes in length, the race that we have here today, the first of 5 rounds that we will have as part of this AMP eSeries event. Again, with big thank you to our sponsors, DiscoveryParts and OMP. We'll talk more about them when we get to go racing. Drivers just starting to pull off the grid. They've lined them up on the back straightaway. And again, Dion Fiello in the 117 and Brandt Estes in that number 17 machine will be the drivers on the front row. They'll warm these tires up a little bit, duck their way into the bus stop for the first time before going green. And as anybody who's driven anything knows, the nerves start to kind of play up a little bit here, especially I think when you're sitting on the grid itself. Once you start rolling that car and the air starts to whistle through the cockpit, whether you're in a closed cockpit sports car, whether you're in an open wheel car, I don't care if you're in a competition kart as well. As soon as that air starts to flow through a little bit, your mind settles back down. You know you have a job to do, and that's get through the opening corner cleanly. You've heard the age-old adage, the fact that you can't win in turn number 1, but you can certainly lose in the opening corner. And hopefully, as Marco said, we'll have cooler heads coming through. Drivers will be able to get through cleanly. Not like a Rolex 24 or an IMSA race where you have different categories, different closing speeds. These drivers all pretty much, as we said, all in the same fixed setup, same equipment with this beautiful GT4 machine, this Porsche car, this Cayman. It'll be up to the drivers and their skill to see who separates who. Fiello will set them off. Pace car's gone down into pit lane, and ladies and gentlemen, we're underway. Green, green, green. Racing into turn number 1. Fiello and Estes down into the braking zone for the first time.
Oh, here we go. Who's that? Michael Lane has gone around, and together with another driver, Brian Speck, maybe. Yes, some cars pointing in the wrong direction, but apart from that, say a reasonably clean start in the first quarter.
looked like right front damage potentially to Brian Speck. That car, right front tire looked like it was askew a little bit. Otherwise, drivers settling in. Good start for Fiello.
Oh,
Ooh, some aggressive racing there. That was some contact. That was the 15 of Mike Jamil Gummer. Driver off the racetrack, though. What number is that? The 69, I believe, off the track there?
yes,
Trying to get... Solid job, though, Marco. Holding on to the car out there in the grass, staying on the throttle. We'll dump some of the pylons around here. That driver's having a bit of trouble getting back on. Again, that is the number 69 machine. He's struggling a little bit. Patrick Wilmot, but he got shuffled off big time coming out of the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, I mean, a great save, especially because if you go there, you usually find yourself into the rallycross portion of the racetrack.
Indeed.
And some nasty, elevation changes there in the grass, as for the first time they make their way into the backstretch, as you can see. Hazelton, Flannery already drafting with each other, trying to get the best out of this run through the bus stop chicane.
Fred Hazelton qualified 5th, running there right now. Hazelton and Flannery kind of lining things up. Flannery in that number 4 machine. Further back here, it's the 93 right up front. So the 93 currently running. Trying to pick up where the 93 is on track here. 93 is Ryan Nichols. So we're on board with Felipe Nasser at this point here. He's driving the number 31 machine. We talked, Marco and I, about Nasser and his ability to work his way forward. A very talented driver. Spent some time, as we said, in the F1 program. Driver to pit lane, though. Someone coming into pit lane early. Might be Speck after the issues that he had, potentially.
It's Braden Kelly. So surprisingly, surprisingly heading for the pits. Maybe he picked up a mechanical black flag in the first lap, or he got maybe a penalty for passing on the inside at the start of the race. But that's strange because it doesn't, on the oh, look at that, there's a car, all the wheel that now will pop back into place. Usually it's this doesn't apply on road races, so yeah, I would suspect that maybe he's got some damage he wants to take care of. As you can see, drivers making their way through the secondary part of the infield there. Flannery, Hazelton, Harper, Michael Green. Someone goes really wide. Let's jump on board with this car. Absolutely fantastic livery on the number 2 of Michael Green. Let's jump on board with him.
That's a great looking car, as you said. Michael Green in that number 2 machine. Michael settling back in. Got a pretty big wide run coming out of 6 and 7, as you said. Skirted way up the racetrack coming through turn number 8. NASCAR 1 and 2. Down the back straightaway. Here's a good look coming into the bus stop. You pound every curb coming through here, do you not? You're all over it. You're trying to use all the racetrack, all the curbing, even on the exit. Grabbing gears to get back out onto the straightaway. And then from here, Marco, this is a fantastic run. And you said you've done a 24-hour race. They run karts here every year as well during Daytona Kart Week between Christmas and New Year's. But man, this run here, all the way through NASCAR 3 and 4 down to the tri-oval. I have to believe in a 24-hour race, you've run 3 of them. There are times in some of these late runs into your stints where you're just trying to make sure you hit your braking marker. That's it, right? Just make sure I don't make a mistake on the brakes.
And it's never an easy run in here, because usually I would always stress about 2 things. Either it was the traffic, either faster cars or slower cars, or just cars in the same class that were lapping me, of course, as per usual. But when it's not that, the moment I exit from the bus of my first, I immediately start to think I need to get that braking zone right, because otherwise, I risk making a mistake, throw the car into the wall, whatever. So one will think, you have such long straights, so you can relax, but in reality, no, because both straights lead to 2 of the trickiest braking areas I can think of in a racetrack, the bus stop and first corner. So you can never really relax around here.
That's because the strategy continues, right? Because you said the minute you come out of the bus stop, all you're thinking about is making sure you keep the car in the right spot. You're watching for people around you, especially in a 24-hour race. You got to hit your braking zone. Same thing coming out of 6 and 7. You can run all the way through 8 and 9. You got all you're thinking about is I got to hit my mark. I got to turn in at the right place to get through the bus stop cleanly, because I think people underestimate the bus stop because it's a fairly simple corner, right? You get on your brakes. It's a 4 apex corner. As we're watching these drivers right now being led by, I believe that's...
dear.
driver. Again, Perfect example. Driver number 4 going around. That was Ryan Flannery. It's a simple corner. It's just 4 apexes you got to hit, but you're trying to carry so much speed through. It's pretty easy to get the thing to rotate. Marco, you've done this before. Here's Flannery coming down the back straightaway. Walk us through this.
Yeah, I've done this plenty of times. In this case, oh, he got clipped.
Oh, he may have got clipped. I thought that he may have just over-rotated, tried to get on the brakes a little late coming in when maybe over-rotated. And then, but indeed, let's have we'll see. See anybody behind him right now? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, the reason why we didn't see anyone behind him is because the driver was so far back, missed the braking zone by a ton, and had to use Flannery to woe him up coming through into the first part of that track corner, which they call turns 10 and 11, the bus stop. Marco, have you done that before? You said you spun there before, but have you ever driven in the back of someone like that before?
Yes, I've driven into the back of people. People have driven in the back. Usually, my first ever 24-hour race, it was 2016, yes, the first time we did it with my teammates. I think I set the world record for times I missed the bus stop.
It's a dubious honor.
I actually made a point this year when we did the race that in all my stints I never driven as much as in this year's 24-hour of Daytona on iRacing. I only missed the bus stop twice, and I took it as a personal victory.
That's pretty solid to me. Watching our leaders here right now, we're into the 7-minute mark. Again, remember, a 45-minute long run. So this is an extended race for these drivers. Again, all these drivers, members of the Atlanta Motorsports Park. This is an eSeries they put together. Not able to get on that tremendous racetrack just outside Dawsonville in Georgia. Instead, they'll make the same run that Bill Elliott did each and every year, coming from his Dawsonville, Georgia shop to come and run the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. Coming down here to Daytona, getting a chance to get back behind the wheel, and it's the community that you have at a country club style track like Atlanta Motorsports Park. We've got drivers who do track days at the particular track itself, the big track. We've also got drivers that compete and drive regularly on the kart track there. Both of those facilities, as I had said off the top, designed by Herman Tilke, Formula One track architect. But watching the leaders here right now, Dion Fiallo, in the 117, really has been the guy from the get-go, qualified on pole, holds a 0.4 of a second lead, which is really only about a car length over Brent Estes. James Holden right there. Marco, your top 3 drivers, front-running trio, pulling away now, but an 8-second advantage over Fred Hazelton.
Super close to each other, these 3 guys, and Holden just had the fastest lap of the race, a 54.52. Last time we went over the start-finish line, as race direction tells us that the driver who went into the pits went there. We have Jaden Reina in the pits. He got a black flag for his connection issues, so these guys are not playing around with that. As here we go, Nasr and Green. Of course, Green has sent his competitor into the wall, Flannery, a couple of laps back. Now they're fighting side by side here with Nasr and Harper as they try. Basically, if I could give you a top 3 of the cars in iRacing that mostly benefit from the draft, this car is certainly in 3rd place, and that's saying something. It's just behind the MX-5 and I would say on par with the TCR car. Draft is very, very strong with this car, so this of course plays a massive part here. For example, with GT cars, of course here in Daytona you will feel the draft and you will close in on the guy in front of you inevitably, but not as much as with these GT4 cars, which are absolutely amazing how much they can get from the car in front of them and close the gap.
Again, watching our leaders, Fiallo, Estes, and Holden, but we had a good shot there of that battle between Felipe Nasr, Michael Green, and Ryan Harper. Those 3 drivers were running together. Nasr got a good run coming out of turn number 7, climbed up onto the banking there. Here's the fight again. There is now Harper to the inside of Green, so move Harper now up into the 6th position. Here's the battle for 13th as well between Thornton Muir and Jason Owens. Those 2 drivers scrapping it out for 13th and 14th, but Nasser doing a good job. He got that good run out of turn number 7, was on the outside of green coming down the long straightaway, as you said, into the bus stop, and really had enough of a run, was able to get into the braking zone a little deeper than green, came across the bow from right to left and took that position. And that, I think, probably spurned Ryan Harper in that really pretty white and blue number 97 machine to go at him as well. He ended up getting by Michael Green. So we move Felipe Nasser up to 5th. Harper goes to 6th. Green down to 7th. Ryan Nickel now running 8th. Jameel Gummer and Michael Day rounding out the current top 10. 19 seconds separate 1st down to 10th. As Marco, it's over 10 seconds now, the gap between that front-running 3 drivers and Hazelton, who has a 2-second lead over Nasser right now.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx it, but so far it seems like the 3 leaders are playing nicely with each other, and they are basically working together. They know that if they work together, it's going to be tough, especially because in reality, Hazelton has been on his own for quite a bit, and behind him, Nasser, Harper, Green, and company have been fighting it out well up until now. So really, they couldn't have made any kind of strategy working together. You can see here, for example, Holden goes past Estes, doesn't fight it very, very hard. Does the 17 as Fiallo gets a 54.4. That's the fastest lap of the race as Michael Green jumps into the pits, I think, for a penalty after that collision at the bus stop chicane with Flannery a couple of laps back.
That shouldn't come as much of a surprise, should it? We saw the contact pushing Flannery off, that deep break into the bus stop. Could be a drive-through penalty here. It looks potentially to be a stop and go. He's actually coming into the pit stop. You know, the interesting thing, I think you nailed it, Marco, with the fact that Holden and Estes, you could see that they know how to work their way through. Now, okay, now we're going through lap, I thought it was lap traffic. I thought that was Fiallo. That's actually the number 93 further back, Ryan Nickel. He's having the scrap right now with Jameel Gummer in the number 15. Actually, it's the 005 as well, Michael Day. So that's actually the fight for 8th and 9th. But to watch Holden and Estes, that was just really smart, intelligent, and strategic early race running, right? We're not even to the 1/3 mark of the race. They're not forcing each other. You know, Estes had second for a majority of the first half of that little stint we saw early, and then Holden made a move down to the inside of turn number 1. Estes left the door open because there's no need to battle right now. They need to work together. They got to make sure that Dion Fiallo can't pull away because, like you said, he goes purple last time by a 154.41. He's trying to stretch that gap out. He's got about a second and a half on Holden and Estes. They better watch out or he's going to pull away.
He is actually pulling away, absolutely. Got the best Sector 1 in this lap already. And he's certainly running away. I was just noticing it, taking a look at the timing table and of course you can check the description of the video and click the first link, will bring you straight through to the timing page. Look at that, 54.384, another fantastic lap, another 6/10 gained on Holden and Estes. So they are now 1.8 seconds away. And actually, let's bring in the lap time comparison between these two drivers and see in the last 2 laps Fiallo has gained half a second on Holden in each of the last 2 laps after having 3 identical laps before that between first and second place. So he has really kicked it into gear and is, as you were saying, trying to pull away.
Always like to, especially early in the race and even late in the race, pick up who the big movers are coming up early. Right now, the biggest mover we've seen so far, Philip Crane in the number 25 machine. He's up 13th position, started at the tail of the field. I don't think Philip actually even turned a lap in qualifying, but he's been able to work his way. Crane now running for 14th and 15th. He battling it out here as well with Michael Lane. Interesting thing about Philip Crane, I find it interesting doing some research. Here's a guy who's a middle school guidance counselor. So obviously, works with kids and able to talk to them about their life goals, whatever it may be. I wonder if they know that the guy's also a pretty accomplished race car driver, driving instructor, coach. His resume stacked with lapping experience, racing at events like VIR 24-hour race or Atlanta 14-hour race. This guy has got a resume of endurance races, and of course, I love seeing the fact that here's a middle school guidance counselor that can get the job done on the racetrack. That's impressive to me.
I always love these little stories of people that have 2 completely different fields of interest as we see Chen going wide here. It is fantastic Hatsune Miku livery. You know, for example, I think Mookie Betts, the baseball player, is also a very accomplished bowling player, and also participated in the World Series of bowling a couple of years ago. For example, you know, I'm off the top of my head. It's
That's a good
great.
one though. I never heard that. I did not know that.
So yeah, I mean, absolutely fantastic, especially when, you know, that's sports, even though two very different sports, baseball and bowling. But you know, a counselor and a driver, I mean, that's I think a first.
Over the years, there have been a number of actors and sportsmen that have obviously come in and did a lot of racing. Alfonso Ribeiro from the Fresh Prince of Bel Air was a top shifter car driver in the U.S. for many, many years. Robin Yount, who used to be a player for the baseball player for the Milwaukee Brewers, was big into karting and racing as well. I do sometimes think that racing connects really strongly with drivers or athletes because it's just such a competitive sport, and especially when it comes down to some of the sports that are maybe more solo, because I think that it's an opportunity for someone who baseball's a team sport, but it's also a singular sport, right? It's an individual sport because you got to play your own position, and I think that they can understand and have the feeling of what it's like to be on the track by yourself. It's kind of you getting the job done on the racetrack. Good battle here for second, though, and these two drivers continue to work together. That again is James Holden in the number 09, Brant Estes in the 17. Marco, I've been impressed because, yeah, the leader's pulling away. He's got just really good speed. Filo's putting all the corners together. He's putting down all the laps. But these two drivers have not made a mistake at all. They've got Nasser, breathing down their neck to a certain extent.
Oval, 54.3 for Fiallo, so another fastest lap of the race. I mean, Dion is a fantastic driver in his own respect, and also a very, very accomplished, I would say, coach, which are, I think, without a doubt, the best, most successful, and certainly more prestigious Italian team of on iRacing by a mile. The only team that has been able to branch internationally and really put a good foothold on the competitions outside of Italy, but also especially in the enduros and the big championships, Mivano are always there. So great to see Dion there, and this fight continues. This fight also, of course, now Nasr has pulled away from the Hazelton and Harper, but they are still very close to each other. Let's jump on board with the number 97.
Cool to hear the way he was working his way down through the gears and back up through the gears. Marco coming through that bus stop, a very crucial part of this racetrack, because really when you get into that second apex, as you roll back on the throttle, that's where you start the straightaway. Indeed, you don't start it when you get out of the corner. The minute you're rolling back on that throttle, the quicker you're on it, the more smooth you're on it, and getting out of that bus stop, the more speed you're going to have when you come down into this braking zone. And wow, a little overcooked there for Harper. Harper goes too deep into turn number one, and you talked about that early, Marco, right off the very top of the broadcast here, start of the race. It is tough going into that corner. You miss your braking zone a little bit, and you watch the apex sail right on by.
And look how quickly Hazelton has closed in on Nasr after being decently away at entering the backstretch. And all of a sudden, getting into turn one, they are nose to tail with each other. But he absolutely right. I know the pain. Again, thankfully, there is plenty of runoff area there. So usually, when you're on your own, you can just run wide and pick up the pieces, and restart. But the problem is, of course, when there's two or more cars, that can become a very expensive parking lot. Actually, I was able to, was it 2 or 3 years ago, they had a very, very wet qualifying session in the 24-hour race in Daytona, and one of the AF Course GTE Ferraris got a massive shunt in the first corner. They were able to patch the car up and race, And let's say a couple of months later, they came to Vallelunga for some testing, and I was, walking through the paddock, and I recognized that was that particular GT car because, yes, at a distance it looked perfect, but then the left side of the car was all bumpy and cracking because of how big of a hit. Because here on iRacing you can go straight, but in real life they have a nice tire wall there to prevent people from going on the other side of the racetrack.
Interesting watching a driver as we see the ticker on the left side of the page, the current lineup of where the drivers stand here in the top 20. And I see a driver there in the 20th position, Marshall Aiken. And I look back and think about my early days, Aiken actually in the 20th spot, as I said, when I first started announcing Formula Car races. And it's an interesting story. Marshall actually had his own racing team in the F2000 program back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And he happened to bring over a British driver who actually raced for him and won a bunch of races that year, and that was Jay Howard. Jay would go on to win the USF 2000 championship. He would end up running in a couple of Indianapolis 500s. Now owns his own team on the road to Indy with drivers in the USF 2000 program. He has cars for Indy Pro 2000 for next year as well. Picked up an Indy Lights car in the offseason. So Jay Howard actually, a little connection here with this particular race is Marshall Aiken. Currently, as I said, was running in the 20th position. Marshall, former team owner in that Cooper Tire Z-Tech F2000 championship. Cool to see that name pop back up.
Of course, you guys must be very excited that the cars are, the USF 2000 and the Indy Pro 2000 are coming to iRacing in the June build. So that's a very, very welcome addition to the simulator. I mean, nothing against the Pro Mazda, which is a lovely car, but oh dear, Nicole goes around.
93 Nickel going around, just trying to carry too much speed through that third apex of the bus stop. Pretty easy to do, is it not? When you try to roll speed through the corner of that track, well, watch the replay. He's getting pressured pretty aggressively from behind. You could just see him getting on it, and it actually starts to break loose on him coming through the second apex. Didn't quite have the rear of the car planted coming through before he rolled back on the throttle. And we've seen that time and time again, Marco. It's not hard to do in that corner because you're always, as I said, trying to get on the throttle earlier. The earlier on the throttle coming through that second apex of that corner, the more speed you're going to have when you roll down into one. And an issue here as well for the number 18 machine overcooking it into the corner. That's Felipe Moises. A little trouble coming to one. And again, drivers really trying to run the ragged edge right now, Marco.
Absolutely. You see Ryan Nicol going into the pits, fresh tires, trying to get some repairs done. And now it's Jason Owens going around.
It's a challenge. This racetrack is hard. There's just a couple of parts, Marco, that are so challenging. You talked about the issues you've had, and you've run a number of 24-hour events here at Daytona, and so you've got countless laps, thousands of laps, no doubt, on the racetrack here. Oh, that was actually contact. Yeah, that wasn't just a spin. That was two drivers looking for the same piece of real estate. It was Jason Owens going around, getting contact. I didn't pick up the number. I wasn't ready to see the number.
Let's see.
Just sit here once again. Philip Crane trying to go to the inside. Didn't quite have it, but you'd have to think that maybe Owens might have looked in the mirror on that one because he left the door open. And Crane, who, as I said, up 14 positions, having started at the tail of the field, was getting aggressive. And that is a good place to make a pass, don't you think, Marco, if you can get to the inside there?
Yes, I absolutely think that... I don't think I've ever passed anybody there for obvious reasons, but if you are, competent driver, which I'm not, you certainly... That's why I'm in the commentary box, of course. But yeah,
that's why we're here.
I think you could. Yeah, that is a fantastic passing spot, especially because of the many different interpretations you can get of the racing line there.
Love that word, interpretations, because that's exactly what it is. And so many, that's what I like about this racetrack as well. Oh, a little wide there for Nasser coming through turn number one. That's going to open the door. Harper's going to get back through. Actually, is that Harper or was that Hazelton?
Hazelton.
That's Hazelton. Yeah, so Nasser had taken the spot away from Hazelton, and then Hazelton takes it back when Nasser overcooks it to turn number one. But one of the things I like about this racetrack, you talk about it in the word interpretations, right? The different approaches that you can take to corners. when you're over to turn number 5, after coming through that, the kink turn 4 following the International Horseshoe, you want to take a big wide berth into the corner. Anytime you make a wide entry to get a good exit, it opens the door up on the inside. There's so many parts of this racetrack. Same in turn number 1. You could stay wide to try to get that big arcing run through turn 1 over to turn 2. But as soon as you open the door like that, drivers can get in there, plant the car, and once you own the apex, you own the exit. And that's, I think, what Crane was trying to do. I think he felt like he had it, was going to be able to roll enough speed through there.
Especially because when you're the driver that's following, you come there with such a massive speed, both due to the fact that it's a massively long straight and the big draft, you are almost invited, to go for it. As now, once again, this time it's Nasr's turn to get the move on the inside, and he does so. So they keep on swapping position. This is making, of course, SS very happy. And now here comes Harper passing Hazelton. So Hazelton drops 2 places in the span of 1 corner.
To me, Marco, like Hazelton just was off the entry there. Because it's a 4 apex corner to a certain extent. Once you're off in one particular corner, you're trying to always playing catch up back through. You're too far to the right, then you're too far to the left, and you push wide. We'll have a look at it again. Here's this rundown. The 31 of Nasser using that draft to full extent, drops down to the bottom, and I don't think that Hazelton was going to try to challenge him that much. Not too defensive. But let's watch Hazelton. He's on the outside. He hasn't worked back in. How much later is he in? Yeah, much later. Super surprised that the car just pushed out like that. It didn't look like it was that bad of a line, but just maybe he felt the car getting away from him a little bit and, straighten the wheel up a bit, Marco, because maybe they could feel the car kind of, that rear end starting to step out. Instead, just straighten that wheel up and drive it out, not try to pinch back around the corner. That's a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely, especially considering that we are getting, it's almost half an hour into the race. Let's take a peek at our weather just in a second, because, let's see.
Marco doing double duty here, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Not only is he on the comms with us, he's actually handling the production as well. This guy can do it all.
I have been doing this since I started, basically, so now it's second nature to me, but I say a lot of people that see my setup when I do this both, and I say, how do you do this? It's it becomes automatic.
It's a skill. It's a skill. You know what catches me off guard there a little bit, Marco? 66-degree ambient temperature, but 123-degree track temperature. We don't normally get that kind of a gap. Normally it's somewhere around 30 to 40 degrees, maybe 30 at the most. So surprising that we're almost 60 degrees difference. But again, the sun is shining, as we've said. So beating down here, the Florida sun, baking the asphalt here at the Daytona International Speedway. Good racing here on the road course. And again, the opening round of this AMP eSeries presented by Discovery Parts and OMP. It's a little shout out here to Discovery Parts as well. They are the leading supplier of racing safety equipment, and they pride themselves on providing the best customer service in the business. Discovery Parts is located in Dawsonville, Georgia, and has a pro shop as well at Atlanta Motorsports Park. Great to have Discovery Parts and OMP sponsoring this new program, this AMP eSeries. Again, a live coverage here on Apex Racing TV. My name is Rob Howden, joined by Marco Barbonero in the booth, and we are, as Marco said, coming into the 30-minute mark, just about 15 minutes remaining in the run. Dion Fiallo is well out front, 6.8 seconds now the lead. Battle pretty solid for second spot. James Holden and Brant Estes have been going at each other, but not too aggressively, more working together, running second and third. Felipe Nasser, former F1 driver and a pilot we potentially could see in the NTT IndyCar Series this year with Carlin Racing. He has worked his way up from 16th on the grid. Now I believe runs in the 4th spot. He's been in a good fight with Ryan Harper and Fred Hazelton for a majority of this race. Jamil Gummer now runs in 7th. Thornton Muir up into the 8th spot, started 14th. Michael Day in 9th, and Felipe Moises started 12th, now runs in the 10th position. Still, a little less than 15 minutes to go, Marco, and Dion Fiallo, as you said, a very accomplished iRacer. But I would have to say, even though he's kind of dominating the action here, he's going to be the rabbit for the rest of these drivers. You talked about the fact that he runs for a well-established, one of the primary iRacing teams. I think most drivers will look at him and say, you know what, you're the guy that we're going to benchmark off of. Show us what you got, and we'll see what we can do at the next race.
Absolutely, and of course we know that Daytona is a track where sometimes things like this can happen, in the sense that you pull away and there is no way for the others to catch back to you. Dion is absolutely driving the wheels of this Porsche GT4. Back to my point, by the way, of the weather, etc. It's I don't know which kind of fixed setup these guys are using. Setups are known for their less than optimized tire pressures. So, with a hot weather like this, the track is absolutely boiling hot. So, these guys, I'm a very, very unknown territory, this final 50 minutes. And once again, the track, 123 Fahrenheit is absolutely astonishing. You could, as I always like to say, you could cook a nice fried egg on the backstretch right now. It would come out absolutely perfect. Bit greasy, I think, but absolutely perfect nonetheless.
It would be cooked nicely. I like that. Easy, over easy. You had mentioned the fact that the tires could be going off, and we saw a little bit of that coming out of turn number 7 as Felipe Nasser was going through 6 and 7, trying to roll back on that throttle and was getting a little bit of exit oversteer. You could see the kart kind of break away on him, and he had to pedal it. And again, a tough part of the racetrack to lose exit speed because you want as much momentum coming out of turn number 7. Because again, that pays off down into the bus stop. Battle between Muir and Gummer. That's the fight for 7th and 8th position, those drivers together. Muir driving the number 11 machine, Gummer in the number 15. I like the fact, Marco, that we're just getting started with this program. It's going to be the next 4, this Wednesday and the next 4 Wednesdays as well. April 22nd, they'll be running at Sebring. I love Sebring. Then they're going to go to Road Atlanta. It's an East Coast-based program. They'll run Road Atlanta, which is such a tremendous racetrack, peril at every corner, and tough for the drivers. It's all about car positioning. Watkins Glen International up in upstate New York on May the 2nd. That's the Wednesday as well. And they're going to cap things off with the undulating Augusta National of Motorsports, Barber Motorsports Park, final round on May 9th, that Wednesday. I love the fact that we've got this season underway. I think we've seen some of the drivers potentially who are going to be battling for the championship before it's all over. We got some great prizes coming from Discovery Parts and OMP. So there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for these drivers. But again, just getting things started. First race of a scheduled 5. And Dion Fiallo leading James Holden and Brant Estes with closing in on 10 minutes remaining. 34-19 on the clock of what will be a 45-minute race.
We have seen in the last few weeks now a flurry of these short, quick-fire championships, and I absolutely love them. It's not a long commitment for the drivers, which is usually the big drawback for, when you do a private league on a racing simulator. You have to, basically they can drag for 5-6 months at times, even a full year, as we have a car in the wall, unfortunately, is Jamil Gammer. So let's see what happened there.
Battle going on there, was there not, with Gummer?
Oh, almost saved. Oh, and then there was another car coming there. I think that was Michael Day. Yes, it was Michael Day. And I think Michael was trying to predict where that car was going to end up, because it had such a prolonged slide. Look at that. And more to
I've got the blimp camera here, so I'm not on the right camera feed.
Okay. Should be back to the TV camera right now.
There we go.
So, more to the point, this car has got not only traction control and ABS, but also stability control. And in that case, maybe we can show it from the chopper. It will work a bit better for you. You can see the stability control actually working against you, because he's trying to save it, but look at that car that's not doesn't want to go straight. And then at the end, unfortunately, Michael was wondering where should I go, where is that car going to end up, and in the end it ended up where he elected to go, and there was simply no space, unfortunately, for the both of them.
We see that a lot, right? That's the split second decision. That's the hand-eye coordination. That's the decision making. that separates many, many drivers, professional drivers from those who may be amateurs, deciding where you need to go. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Even the best drivers in the world sometimes can't make the right choice where to go if there's any kind of room whatsoever. What a battle here right now. Hazelton and Muir going at it. Again, these are guys that are going back and forth. 6th and 7th position. I like this run here right now. The number 11 of Thornton Muir, up 8 spots, started 14th, moves that Porsche that came in up into the 6th position. I know they'll go side by side coming through the tri-oval. Who's going to give it up when they come down in 160 miles an hour? It's Hazelton to the top of the racetrack. Muir at the bottom, working their way into the braking zone. Muir's got that inside line, potentially an over-under. All you can really do there, Marco, is try to press the driver in front of you into making that mistake, right? Either overcook the braking line coming in, potentially drop a wheel at the exit, do the same thing down into the International Horseshoe. If you don't have the spot coming into turn number 1, all you can do is keep applying pressure and see if you can't force your challenger into that unforced error.
Absolutely, and again, very easy to make a mistake there, so that is not a bad strategy at all. They go... Oh, maybe something happened to Nasr. Oh yeah, he spun.
It's in the Horseshoe. Yeah, it's in the International Horseshoe. So Nasr's gone around from P5. And here comes Muir. Actually, this is Muir and Hazelton closing up. He had a pretty good advantage over those two drivers, but that number 11 machine of Thornton Muir, who was 6th after getting by Fred Hazelton, is now putting his pressure on the ex-Formula 1 driver, Felipe Nasr.
Very quickly the replay so we can follow them as they enter into the bus stop. Let's see what happened to Felipe.
The corners, is there contact? No, just pinched the corner. Tried to carry too much speed through. Contact from the 97 as well from behind, Ryan Harper. Harper able to continue. Here they come into the bus stop now, and Muir to the outside. Can he roll? Doesn't get the apex. Misses the apex. Here comes, back on the inside comes Nasr.
Oh dear.
I like you calling careful. You've done this before.
Yes, and I'm...
Your breath, Marco. You were holding your breath.
Not only have I done that many times, but I also commented on many very bad crashes on this racetrack, so I know all the places where you can have a big wreck in iRacing, because I've either done it or commentated on it, so I know all the possible outcomes, and most of them are not good.
I'll tell you, Muir obviously knows who he's battling with. He's got Felipe Nasr on the inside. Nasr having some connectivity issues there, hopping in and out of the screen. But as they come down into the bus stop there, he just overcooked it and actually got a little bit wide. Oh, and has some trouble coming through turn number 2. He's going to give up 2 spots. A little trouble coming out of turn number 1, got off the racetrack and off the racing line in turn number 2 as they worked their way over to turn number 3, the International Horseshoe. Not able to get through that sweeping right-hander with the same position you entered turn number 1. He's going to fall down a couple of spots. All that work, Marco, that Thornton Muir did to work his way back to 5th, was able to get by Felipe Nasr. A minor miscue in turn number 2. He goes from P5 back to P7 and essentially gifts Nasr the spot that he lost spinning 1 lap earlier.
Absolutely, and when he spun, I think Harper was the guy who collected him. Who collected Nasr, but seems to be good right now. He's got 7 seconds and a half over Felipe, so 4th place looking good for Ryan. And now the question is, I'd say that Dion Fiallo is happily in the lead. At a certain point, these two guys will have to start fighting harder than what they're doing right now, which is just basically some swap drafting at the front of the pack. Laps around the 155 mark for these drivers, so not a lot of laps left with just 4 minutes and change. As here we go once again, all the Nesters swapping the position as they enter into the first corner once again.
Marco, it feels to me like for the last 40 minutes, they've just been dancing with each other. You know, they've just been going back like a couple of fighters in the ring, a couple of boxers, just kind of dancing around each other, not doing anything, maybe a couple of jabs here and there. Like you said, they've passed each other back and forth. One guy's gone down the inside like we just saw. Harper made a move down, or Holden rather made a move down to the inside of 1, and Estes kind of opened the door and said, it's all yours. As you said, time's winding down. We got 4 minutes remaining, lap times of 154. So what do we got? 2, maybe 3 laps remaining here. Sooner or later, they're going to have to meet in the middle of the ring and start swinging. The time for dancing is done. Now it's time to get fighting. We're going to have a scrap here as well. This is going to be for I believe 5th and 6th, right? Yeah, it's Hazelton and Nasser. They're going at it as well. So the final position of the top 5 not going to get decided till the very end as well. Nasser really going to work here, trying to do the over-under. The big move down into turn number 5. Look at Nasser way around the outside. Book it. Beautiful pass around the outside. Can he roll back down, get the power down? He does. Nasser able to go back to P5. And trouble further back there for Thornton Muir. He does 4 wheels off on the extra 5.
Yeah, I could pick up with my headset when Nasser went on the outside to make the pass. I could hear the marbles and the dust being kicked around, so he went on the dirtiest part of the racetrack there, outside of the racing line. That has been certainly a very tough pass to make because the grip there, of course, is less than ideal. As they enter in the bus stop once again, as back to the front, Holden and S, but I think we've had a problem for Felipe Moises, which we will show to you in an instant as soon as these two guys have sorted themselves out once again, should I add, into the first corner. And now SS goes a bit into the gravel there, 2 wheels off, nothing major. Will he go for a move? Yes, okay.
Contact between both drivers. Contact at the apex of the International Horseshoe, turn number 3. I knew this was going to heat up sooner or later, and I'm really surprised. Here's that fight again for 5th. Hazelton on the outside, the 22. Nasser on the inside, in the 31. But really kind of surprised there that yeah, I guess there's a couple laps remaining, maybe getting down to the end here, because Holden dropped the wheel coming out of turn number 2 as he tried to settle back in to the run over to 3, and still push the issue, Marco. Probably maybe a little early to do that.
Yes, and you know, this car, as Hazelton goes very wide and Nasser goes for the cutback on the inside, but now he will be on the outside for the kink, where you usually shouldn't attempt to make a move. You know, it's these cars are built like tanks on a racing. As Nasser goes once again for that outside, very, very dirty. Again, you can hear the marbles being kicked around, but Felipe this time again is able to make the move. These cars are very resistant to contact, except when you make contact on or with the wheels, especially the front wheels. Breaking those steering arms, the suspension, is incredibly easy, and hopefully Holden and Estes are both doing okay. Let's jump on board with them. Seems like the steering is pretty straight on both cars, and let's very quickly see what happened to Felipe Moises, who was here in the infield section in that white car. He clips the grass and goes around.
Point where you've really got to get back on the throttle and to turn into that corner. Look at this fight here. I was wondering whether or not Thornton Muir was going to come back in the fight because hey, I rather Harper and Muir, Hazelton, and Nasser and Hazelton were fighting it out a little bit there. And look at Muir fighting his way back. Remember, he was 4 wheels off a couple of laps ago. We're coming down. This could be the final lap, I think, right now. Would you say, Marco? We're at almost at the 45-minute mark. Would this be the last lap for these drivers?
I think so. 3 wide.
Good move down the inside.
Oh, but he goes around.
He's gonna rotate. Nasser around in turn number 1. I'm not sure if there was contact there. Marco, do you think there was contact?
I saw his left rear bouncing weirdly on the straight as they were coming up to the first corner. So maybe he was having a puncture. Let's see, the tire looks good now. So maybe it was just one of the illusions given to us by the latency. Let's see once again.
Yes.
No contact.
Down to the bottom of the racing. Oh, there's definitely contact there.
There's contact.
Well, you know that was a really low entry, and he's going to have to load that thing up to get it turned, and it was just Muir getting into the back of him. Dion Fiello, though, ladies and gentlemen, I believe this will be the final circuit.
Yes.
Fiello in that number 117, and Marco will confirm it. He'll roll his way down the straightaway off the throttle, allowing one more driver to get another lap as the checkered flag flies here at the Daytona International Speedway road course. The winner today in the opening round of the AMP eSeries presented by Discovery Parts and OMP, Dion Fiello. A tremendous run for him. We're watching this battle between Holden and Estes. Contact over in the International Horseshoe a lap ago, and Estes just not able to get enough speed through there with the draft. Holden's going to end up coming in second. Estes in third. Here's Ryan Harper and Thornton Muir. Is it Muir up front or is it Harper? I think Muir, yeah. Muir's been able to get through, I believe. Indeed, he is. Thornton Muir, who started in 14th, going to find himself with a 4th place finish. A really strong run for Thornton Muir here today. He was in the middle of a lot of fights. He'll work his way across the line as well. Oh, there's that replay of the contact there from the outside. Marco, tremendous run for Dion Fiallo. Drivers coming around to lap to finish things up. Chen, Flannery, Lane, Gummer.
I think Flannery could get 9th place in the end with a little bit of drafting.
That's nicely done, was it not?
Yeah,
got out of the horseshoe, got out of the bus stop nicely, tucked himself up inside the rear bumper of Chen, and was just able to get that draft. As we said from the get-go, the draft's so important here. Well, let's talk about Dion Fiallo. What a tremendous run for him. As you said, one of the top sim racers, races for one of the top quality teams in the iRacing world, the community. Tremendous race for him. And Marco, he's going to be the benchmark for the drivers here in this AMP eSeries. They're going to see what he's able to do. They're going to be judging themselves and using him as the rabbit. This is the guy we got to go get. This is the speed we need. Today, though, he wins nicely and gets a pretty impressive victory. Over 13 seconds, the win over James Holden and Brent Estes.
It was a beautiful victory. He was able to break away from the draft, which is, as I said many times, easier said than done, especially around here. And then he had a very cool, calm, and collected race there at the front. Never really run into trouble. I am very, very excited to see what he and the other drivers can do at Sebring, because as you know, and as everyone knows, these two tracks might be, semi-close in terms of distance, especially in terms of US distances, because if it was Italy, they would be like, in the backyard of each other, but completely different in terms of how they challenge you.
I totally agree with that. Sebring, a bumpy racetrack, a former military airstrip, and it's been used hardcore over the years. The 12 Hours of Sebring, of course, one of the legendary races. Tremendous racetrack. Drivers will work their way back into pit lane, but not so for Dion Fiallo, as he will bring that beautiful Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 right there down. Maybe put his signature on the infield here at the Daytona International Speedway. Just a really, really impressive run. As I said, kind of set the bar for everyone. He'll bring it to a stop and shut things down. That was a tremendous start. Dion Fiallo, as we said, 13.7 seconds, the win over James Holden and Brent Estes. Those two drivers running together for essentially the entire 45-minute race, going back and forth, dancing, as I had said, thinking about the boxing reference, finally putting up the gloves and duking it out in the middle of the ring over the last couple of laps. Ryan Harper ends up P4, Fred Hazelton rounding out the top 5. Felipe Nasser started, I think, back in about 16th position. Good fight for him as well. He was battling it out with Hazelton and Muir as well. Muir ended up falling down to the 17th position. I'm not sure what happened there based on the results we're seeing here. Felipe Moses finishing 7th. Ryan Flannery in 8th. Sonny Chen 9th. And Michael Lane. Marco rounding out the top 10 in the opening round of the Atlanta Motorsports Park eSeries, sponsored by Discovery Parts and OMP.
Yeah, in P11, Jamil Gamer. Then in 12th place was Philip Crane. Michael Day finished in 13th. 14th was Jason Owens. 15th place for Joseph Blankenship. 16th was Wesley Slimp. Then Toto Muir, unfortunately, finishing in 17th. So I think he got a penalty, and in the end, because he dropped quite a lot of time. I think he finished much closer to the front. So this usually happens when you have, for example, a penalty that you don't serve, for example, for cutting. Maybe he cut a bit of the final corner of the bus stop, sorry, and he didn't serve the slowdown penalty. So then you get tagged with basically a stop and go, and that gets converted into a time penalty. So you get sent basically to the back of your lap more often than not.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait for that. 18th place for Brian Speck, that we can see there, and Ryan Nicol and in 19th, and rounding up your top 20 was Patrick Wilmot.
Starting off this program, first round of what will be a 5-round series. We just capped off an event here at Daytona International Speedway. Again, my name is Rob Howden. Marco Barbanero, working with us here today as the producer and joining me here in the broadcast booth as well. Next Wednesday, we'll be at Sebring International Raceway for what should be a tremendous battle. Following up there, we will go Road Atlanta, a great track just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Watkins Glen International in upstate New York, the famed circuits will be host to round number 4, and we'll cap things off at Barber Motorsports Park. Marco, this was a tremendous battle for sure. I like the fact that we had different fights around the racetrack, not for the lead, because obviously Fiello able to pull away, but a pretty good dance for second and third. But we saw 2, 3, 4 driver battles all the way through the pack, and I think that's what people want when they come racing here on the iRacing platform.
As I've said, this car is very popular, so I've seen and I've commented on plenty of series with this already. But you can see when the drivers know what they are doing because the show is great. And these drivers today, or tonight I should say, knew what they were doing. And because it's an easy car to drive, but very tough to bring to the limit. And in other championships I've had the pleasure to commentate on, you can see some of the drivers making plenty of mistakes. It's a very, very tricky car. Here they all fought respectfully. There were a couple of contacts. They are, I'd say, inevitable. But in the end, it was a very, very fun way to spend the past hour and a bit. And of course, I kindly recommend you to keep following us on Apex Racing TV on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can also find us sometimes, a lot of times on the iRacing Esports Network, but everything we stream there is also a simulcast here on our channel. So tomorrow, don't miss a spectacular triple header of events starting at 18:15 GMT with the Team Hard iRacing League without financial. Then 15 minutes later, the Isolation April Dollar F3 Championship will be from Beautiful Barber, and then half an hour after that, so at 7 GMT, the Apex Racing League ARLTC, the premier series that we broadcast, that will be live from, more or less my own backyard in Imola. And of course, big stuff on Saturday with, as the crown jewel, I'd say, Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tires. That will be at 16:45 GMT. I think that's almost all. Rob, take it away.
Are we going to be able to get guys for interviews, or are we wrapping things up today, Marco?
I don't see anyone in for interviews. They've all disappeared. So I think that for today, this will be it. Hopefully next week drivers will be a bit less shy and come to talk to us.
That's what we'll do. We'll make sure the drivers who finish on the podium stay around and wait in our interview waiting area, so we're able to talk to them when this is all said and done. But ladies and gentlemen, that was a great way to kick off this AMP eSeries. And I'll echo what Marco said. I've been able to commentate a bunch of races here over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and inevitably they were fraught with a lot of chaos, a lot of contact, tons of wrecks. I'll say this right now, and again, Marcos talks about how great a car this is to drive, this GT4 Porsche Cayman. I've definitely got to get some more time in it myself, but these drivers out here did a tremendous job, and I have my respect because there was just great racing all the way through the field. We saw that tremendous battle between James Holden and Brant Estes in of course, row in the battle for second and third. All in all, a tremendous way to start the season. Big thank you to Atlanta Motorsports Park for putting the program together here with Apex Racing TV. Huge thank you to DiscoveryParts and OMP as well, the sponsors of the program. If you want to learn more about the track, atlantamotorsports.com. Again, a tremendous road course, as well as that fantastic and iconic karting facility at AMP as well. Otherwise, we're done here from Daytona International Speedway, folks. On behalf of Marco Barbanera, my name's Rob Howden. Bye for now.